Okay, everyone, I'm Hannah Davis. I'm with the marketing department with Fix It Group, and today we are launching a really exciting project. I'm joined with Brian Remington, GM of On Time Experts in Dallas. I've got my OTE polo on to represent. Brian, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really excited to get this out here. We're starting a podcast. Brian, this was really your brainchild, so I'm going to let you take it away. Tell us the name and then tell us the intention. Why are we doing this?
So we're calling it the Legendary Service Podcast. And really, the idea behind it is, we're training 12 keys and we're doing a lot of kind of formal training in the training rooms in all of our branches. But really, this is to augment that and to add some conversation, but also invite some of the field people and different guests throughout the organization that are doing great things and really highlight what they're doing, but also as a peer to hear what somebody is doing that maybe I can get some real life application, or I can get some nuggets from them to help take my game to the next level. Really, the way I see it is it can really bring the 12 keys to life even more, because in a classroom, somebody can stand up there and train for an hour and you'll get some stuff. But when you're hearing from one of your peers and how they've applied it, I think it'll take it to the next level.
I think this is also going to be great for leadership. It might have been a while since you guys were out in the field. So to hear that from our team members, how they troubleshoot, their best practices, I think people are going to benefit from this on every level.
100%.
So for our first episode, there were two concepts that you really wanted to talk about. What were those two concepts?
So today I want to talk about really key 5 in our 12 keys training. It's called aligning expectations. And, we're beginning of June here. And so we're in this phase where we're moving out of the maintenance phase of our year and we're going into more demand heavy. And we always see every year there's this shift where we get a lot of demand calls. And what's the difference between the guys that are getting the bigger repair tickets and the turnovers for replacement, and the guys that are just getting the kind of the initial repair and leaving? And in training, we talk about kind of technician A versus technician B. And most of our competitors, they're full of guys that are technician A, which they're going to go in, they're going to find the problem, fix it, charge, and leave. And that's what most technicians do. And that's what most clients expect, is come in, hopefully it's quick, easy, and cheap, and you're in and out, and one repair and leave. But we know, as doing this as long as we have, and as technicians, that parts don't just fail on their own. And so how do we not only do what technician A does, find, fix, charge, and leave, but we want to go through the entire system and make sure not only do we get them back up and running, but we make sure it's not going to break down on them again after we leave. Because if we change out that failed capacitor and we don't address anything else, the likelihood that capacitor is going to fail again next week, 2 weeks down the road, next month is high. So what we've done, being technician A, is we've failed to give the client complete peace of mind. And so really how we do is we set that up in the beginning of the call by aligning the expectations with the client so that the rest of the call goes smoothly and they know that what we're doing. And so, and really we're giving them what they want. They don't want us back out in the summer with another failed unit, with putting their life on hold again. They don't want that. So really, I want the conversation to be, what does that sound like? How do we do that in the beginning of the call that really will set us up for success the rest of the call and get the triple win that we talk about, with the client wins, the technician wins, and the company wins? How do we get that every single call? Because we're not getting a triple win if all we do is get the initial repair and we leave. The biggest tool is the technician. He's got to set the tone at the beginning of the call. So there's the front end of the call, and there's quite a few things that have to get accomplished. Specifically with what we're talking about today is we call it getting a peace of mind commitment. And so, it starts off with the question of the client. Hey, Hannah, do you know exactly what it is I'll be doing for you today? And typically a client's like, well, yeah, you're going to figure out what's wrong and fix it. Right. And yeah, absolutely. 100%. My number one goal today is to get you fixed up and get that cool air restored in your home. So you're not so hot in your house. That's my number one goal. But what I found, Hannah, is most people only call us when they have an issue. And so while I'm here, I'm going to be going through your entire system and making sure not only am I going to find and fix, but I'm going to make sure everything else looks good so that by the time I leave today, you have complete peace of mind that you're not going to have another breakdown this summer. Is that important to you, Hannah?
Absolutely.
The client's mindset is they're worried that you're going to charge them more than what you should. You're going to find more problems than what you should, and it's going to cost them too much. And you're going to tell them they need to replace their system, and they have all these fears, right? And they're hopeful it's going to be fast, easy, and cheap. Oh, it's just the thermostat. Oh, it's just this, it's just that. And so you have that client mindset when we go into the call. But when I have this conversation, the way I just kind of outlined it to you, the homeowner is like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I don't want the inconvenience of another breakdown. I don't want to have you guys back out here this summer. That makes sense. Yeah, I want that. And every homeowner wants peace of mind. So if we don't have that conversation, this is what happens is we go in, and even if we're doing that, right, we go in, we figure out what's going on, but we also found a root cause or something else that's causing it. Now we're presenting a larger kind of repair ticket or a larger solution. And the customer is like, whoa, that's $1,200 to fix my AC. That sounds like a lot. And they don't have the education that, hey, it's this, but it's also, this is what's causing it. And remember, they're clouded by their fears. So then they get a second opinion or something like that. They invite another company out, and the other company says, oh, it's just the capacitor. It's $200. And then now we're the bad guys. We tried scamming them or cheating them because we didn't align the expectations properly up front. And of course, the second guy was telling the truth because it was quick, easy, and cheap. That's what I wanted, and that's what I was hopeful for. So it's avoiding that situation, doing it right, and really giving the client our best. That's really what we want. We want them to have all the information. But if you don't have the conversation up front, you're really, really hurting yourself later on in the call.
When you were talking about aligning those expectations, are there certain words that you do use and that you don't use? Because when you say, hey, I'm going to go through your whole system. Yes, this is malfunctioning, but I want to make sure everything's working well.
Yes.
We were talking about how the word inspection is a 4-letter word in this industry.
Yes.
What are words to use to put a homeowner to make them feel at ease versus, oh, they're looking for a problem rather than looking for the best long-term solution?
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because guys get into trouble right here. And it's the way it's traditionally been taught, not in this organization, but in other companies. And it's like, hey, I'm going to be going through your system, look for if there's any other issues I come across, do you want me to come find you? Or hey, I'm going to get you fixed up, and then I'm going to look to see if there's anything else wrong with your system. I'm telling the client the same thing, but through basically from the other side of the fence is, hey, first and foremost, my goal is to get you fixed and get your cool air blowing. But while I'm here, I want to make sure everything else in your system looks good so that I can give you complete peace of mind by the time I leave today that you're not going to have any issues the rest of the summer. So I'm telling them the same thing, but I'm hitting it from the other side where I'm not expecting to find other issues. I'm going to make sure everything else looks good so that I can give you complete peace of mind. And then now that lowers the guard of the client, that I'm not there to find more stuff to make it more expensive. I'm going to fix it. And by the way, I'm going to make sure everything else looks good so that I can give you complete peace of mind. It just lands on the ear completely differently to a client that makes them more open, makes them more receptive to the education I'm about to give. Everything else I'm going to do for them, I'm not there to find things to charge them more. I'm actually there to help them, give them the thing that they want most, which is peace of mind.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking peace of mind, that was really the peace of mind sale, right? That once you're able to deliver that feeling to somebody, you create a client and a client for life. They trust you. Brian, you've got an individual on your team who's really mastered this approach. You
Yeah.
think we're ready to are we ready to bring him in?
Yeah, let's bring him in. Mr. Collin Breen, he's one of our service technicians here in Dallas. I don't want to inflate his head bigger than it already is, but what I'll tell you guys, everybody listening in the organization, is that this is the number one turnover technician, not just at On Time Experts, not just in the Fix It group, but in the entire country. I don't think there's anybody else out there doing what Collin does at the rate and the scale that he does it. I mean, you're talking, it's June 7th is already knocking on the door of $2 million of turn revenue. You're talking about a year-to-date success rate of over 50%. That's unmatched. There's nobody out there even coming anywhere close to that. So the reason why we brought Collin on to discuss this is it's such a foundational concept. And if I'm a technician out there who turns leads or who aspires to be higher on your batting order and wants to get those great ops, anything I can glean from this guy, I'm all ears, because if I can get a couple nuggets from Collin, I'm going to be better. And so that's why we brought him on today.
Collin, anything to say to that?
Wow, I've never had an introduction like that. I appreciate the vote of confidence. I wanted to start off by saying, I think you give me a little bit too much credit, because all of my success has been generated because of the 12 keys. It just boils down to being disciplined to do the process day in and day out, whether you feel like it or not. Guys, if you've never been to Texas, it gets hot, it gets humid. We start triple digits and we don't come down for like 4 months, and it wears on you. Everybody has life happen and all that stuff. The difference between our technicians here and the technicians around the country that are doing the 12 keys process through day in and day out, it boils down to making sure that you are delivering complete peace of mind for the customer. So I heard what you guys were saying, before you brought me in. That is ultimately what my success is predicated on. You can sell parts and get a customer, or you can sell peace of mind and gain a client, and that really is the difference. I truly believe that.
Okay, so Collin, number one, you sharing this information, you may not be number one that much longer. So you're doing this yourself. I'm just letting you know.
Sure.
So, okay, you walk in the door. Brian was just saying it starts with the initial conversation and the setting of expectations.
Absolutely.
What are the best practices for you when in the first 30 seconds, first minute of meeting a customer that we hope to turn into a client? What are you doing those first 60 seconds, that first meeting?
As soon as you walk in the door, I mean, you're aligning expectations from the moment you get dispatched for the call till you get in the door. It's reviewing, the notes and everything, making sure that you have a good understanding. But when you get in the door, like Brian said, the customer's anxious. The customer is nervous that you're going to give them bad news. I always start off, introducing myself and asking the customer, so what brings me out today? I understand we have an issue. Let the customer tell you, kind of what they're doing. And we've all experienced this. Oh, it's just a drain line. This happened 2 years ago. Oh, this, oh, that. One thing that you do not want to do when you're trying to align expectations is invalidate what the customer is saying. You want to acknowledge it, but then expand on it, and it gives you a little opportunity to do some education. But ultimately, you want to assure them, like, my number one priority here today is to get you back in cooling. As we're coming in a demand season, people get addicted to that little drug called urgency, and customers are willing to, pay whatever, do whatever, get cold air. But the problem is that is a very, very treat 'em and street 'em style, and we don't do that here. within the organization. That's not how 12 Keys works. So you really have to align the expectations with the customer and make sure that they're on board.
Brian, what's your response to what Collin just described? I said, how does it start with that first conversation? His first point, which was interesting, was it starts before that. What were your takeaways hearing Collin describe that?
So one thing you'll hear us talk about is a lot is do what you're there to do. And so, it's easy as a technician, you get the 15-year-old system dispatched your way that's not cooling. And some guys could think, I'm gonna somehow see if I can get them to replace, whether a turnover or hey, there's going to be some big repairs here. Well, really, what's the nature of the call? And if it's a maintenance call, we got to do the best dang maintenance that client's ever seen. If it's a demand call, well, what are they paying for? They're paying for a complete and thorough diagnosis. They're not paying for us to come in and change a part and leave. So it's reminding yourself as you're going through the notes, you're looking at the history, you're looking at the nature of the call is, first and foremost, my job is to give that client a complete and thorough diagnosis. And what does that look like? And then when I get in there and when I'm talking to the client and I say, hey, do you know exactly what it is I'll be doing for you today? And they say, well, yeah, it's this or that, and you're gonna fix it, right? And you say, absolutely. I'm gonna look at that drain line, or I'm gonna check your Freon, or I'm gonna look at that thermostat, and I'm gonna. By the time I leave today, I'm gonna make sure you got cool air. But listen, while I'm doing that, you've paid for me to give you a complete and thorough diagnosis. I'm gonna go through the rest of the system while I'm here and make sure everything else looks good. Because the last thing I want for you, Mrs. Smith, is me to do something real quick and leave. And then you're calling my office tomorrow saying, darn it, Collin didn't fix it. He was here yesterday and now it's not cooling again. We don't want that. So I want to make sure that by the time I leave today, Mrs. Smith, that we'll actually be able to guarantee to you it won't break down on you again this summer. Is that important to you? And that's the big thing, is following it up with, is that important to you? And when the client says, yes, of course that's important to me, now they've committed. They've committed to go on this journey with me. And I think that's critical.
Collin, that question, when you say, is that important to you? Do you observe a shift in the client? How does that change that? To me, it sounds like all of a sudden we're in this together. What do you see psychologically when you say, hey, is that important to you?
It starts with how you phrase that question. Brian says the only absolute thing that you cannot change within the 12 keys is one question. However, I believe it's two. It is obviously we all know the first one is, do you know exactly what I'm going to be doing for you here today? Do not change that. Don't modify it. The second one I truly believe is that important to you? Is having complete peace of mind important to you, your wife, your family, knowing that you're not going to have to call me back? You have to phrase it like that. And I think as technicians, we get into a little bit of a rush, because I've had guys that have requested, I ride along with them, and I've ridden along with them to give them, just some feedback. And they seem to casually mention, that's important, right? Or I'm sure that's going to be important that I don't have to come back, right? That's not the same thing. It does not align the customer the way that you want it to. And it doesn't, we all say, if you say it, they doubt it. If they say it, it's true. And that comes from them verbally saying, yes, that is important to me, because I do not want, my partner, significant other, spouse, having to deal with this while I'm at work in a nice conditioned house. Okay. So it's very, very important that you say it in that manner. Is it important? Is that important to you that you do not have a breakdown?
Collin, here's another question for you. The home services industry can have a bad reputation in the sense of, you come in, you try and get the biggest ticket possible. So what is, and that's not the way Fix It Group, OTE does business, is sincerity and honesty. How important is that? Truly doing right by the customer. When maybe I could tell a story, an upsell. How important is honesty and sincerity? Because look, a customer wants, that's great. a customer for a lifetime, it's hard to even put a dollar value on that. So talk to me about the sincerity and honesty and what that means for success long term.
It starts with, whether you're there for a demand or a maintenance, the front end of the call is so important. Asking the questions, that the customer probably has never been asked. They may have, finding out whether or not they have had a bad experience with another company. If they've been a customer of ours or a client of ours for a while, do they remember the last technician that was in their home? What did they like about it? What didn't they like? Do they feel like they got the value out of the service that they're paying for? Making sure that you take time at the front end of the call to ask those questions is totally fine. Obviously, you want to say, hey, my primary objective here is to get you cooling as quickly as possible. Is that important to you? Yes. Okay. Before I get started, I have a few questions to speed this along. And that is, you get to dive deeper into what is important to the customer. Because you could ask a question like, hey, how have your utility bills been lately? Have you noticed they've been trending up each summer? And if the customer's like, no, that, but you know what? I've noticed that the airflow in that back bedroom, for the last few years, it just, obviously the customer's diverting and they're prioritizing what is important to them. So as you're going through the front end of the call, active listening is very, very important. We don't ask these questions just to check the box on the process. We ask these questions to gather information that we can then use to put together the absolute best option for the customer. Now, one thing that I tell my customers all the time is, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I don't really care what you do. What I care about is ensuring that you have all of the information that you need in order to make the best decision for you and your family, and that I provide you with all of your options, so that way you have complete peace of mind that what you choose to move forward with is right for you. When you say that, when you kind of remove yourself, from the equation, customers, you kind of see their shoulders drop a little bit. Like, whether or not you want to repair it, whether or not you want to replace it, the decision is yours. And I've even gone along, just one of the things that you guys may be able to try using, I've gone along is, to go a little bit a step further and say, at the end of the day, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to go back to my house, which has a very, very efficiently, properly running system. And it's going to be 70 degrees when I get home. But it's important to me that I do a good job here. I deliver a level of experience and service that you've never had. So that way, whatever decision you feel is right for you and your family, it's up to you. I just want to make sure I provide those options to you. And at the end of the day, if the customer, one thing I think technicians, they get so upset when a customer doesn't move forward with what they recommended. And you can be empathetic. Having empathy for a customer situation is very, very key. But you have to learn to be empathetic without transferring the emotion to you. If you can't control your own emotions about whether or not a customer's making a good decision, it's going to come out in the options you provide and the level of service that you provide as well. There's nothing wrong if a customer's like, no, we're not doing that. Okay, Mr. Client, may I ask why? Is there something that is hindering your choice to move forward with this recommended option? And that all, if you have that information, you review the notes. They've been recommended a compressor saver. They've been recommended a condenser fan motor. They've been recommended a leak search. And now we are here out for the third time, in the summer, the second summer, and the customer's like, oh, we do this every year. Why? If you're explaining and educating along the way, and then you document that, they may not move forward with it right then and there. But I'll tell you what, proper documentation sets up your fellow coworker who may be going back, or you may be going back, and you'll get them on the next run, because you're building the education, you're building the value, you're building that rapport with the customer. If you're out there and the customer feels like they lost $200, $300, $400, $500, but they got cold air, but they don't know your name, they have no more education about how their system runs, why the problem happened in the first place, they're probably not gonna remember you or the service you. They're like, oh yeah, we had our AC service. The guy came out, it was like $600. But if you go out and you tell a customer, I'm gonna guarantee you that you're gonna have complete peace of mind by the time that I leave. but I'm going to get you up and running. Okay. You get them up and running, and then you go through the system and you educate them on why that part failed, why that system is on its last legs, why they may want to consider replacement options with a more efficient and reliable system, especially when the cost to continue to repair and maintain that system or operate that system, high utility bills, inefficiency, that customers are paying for new units all over the country. They just don't realize it. And that line right there, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you're already paying for a new unit. If you look at all of the amount of money you spent on repairs over the last 12 months and divide that, that averages out to about $175 a month. That's a new unit right there. And you don't have one.
The key to me is two things. What you said is it's education, and then it's putting the customer in the driver's seat. You provide options and they make the choice. They are not being pushed. They are in control. We've got a little less than 5 minutes. Brian, I want you to tee up a question for Collin.
A couple things. Just one thing I want to say, because you mentioned sincerity, and I think that's really important. You can't fake sincerity to a client. Yep. Clients know if you're there for your best interest or you're there for theirs. You cannot fake that. Even if you follow the process and, like Collin said, you check the boxes at the front of the call, people have that sixth sense. They know if it's genuine, if it's real, if that's truly what you want is what's best for them, or if you're just trying to get as much money for yourself. People can tell that, and it's very off-putting if you're only in it for you. That's why I tell our guys all the time, it's not about you. It's not about you. The heart and soul behind the 12 keys is you do the very, very best and that you can for your client, and you wow their socks off without expectation of anything in return. And when you have that heart, people can tell and they can feel it. And then the byproduct of that is higher income, is more people will accept your recommendations. That's the byproduct. It's not what's leading you going into that call. The question I have for Collin, and I think this is something that will be helpful to kind of just put a bow on this, is we talk about having this conversation and getting the client to commit to wanting complete peace of mind by the time we leave today. Collin, how does this help you fast forward where the client, if you do it right, the client is much more likely to accept your recommendation, because the principle of consistency states that my actions are most likely to follow what I verbally say, what I verbally commit to. So if I say peace of mind is important to me, internally, I know I'm not being consistent if I now say, I don't want that peace of mind, right? So let's go there where you recommend let's just talk about the repair, and the client says, you know what, I'll hold off on that. Let's say they do still object, right? Are you reminding them of the commitment they gave you at the beginning, or what does that look like?
Absolutely. You've got, you've got the option to just, take the no, and then they, okay, well, this is what's going to happen. Good luck. Or you have the option to remind them that, wait, Mr. Remington, you told me that complete peace of mind was the most important thing to you. And you wanted me to provide that for you by the end of my visit. And I told you I would do that. I can't do that if we're not getting this system in proper working order. So is there a reason why you wanted complete peace of mind, but yet now you don't? Is it the price? Is it whether or not you feel like you need to do it? I think a lot of times as technicians, we see it still here in Dallas with some of our newer guys. They're afraid to ask. They don't want to be confrontational. Guys, you got to realize that is your own discomfort talking to you, because the customer wants to know that, one, you truly have their best interest at heart, and two, this is the right option for them. So guys that take no real easy and then they don't explain or push just a little bit, maybe further education, all no means it means, a confused mind says no. It's just a request for more information. Okay. So ensuring that you're not letting, if you get the commitment at the front end and you're not letting the customer off at the back end, you will see those close rates go higher. You'll see the customer satisfaction go up as well. Because ultimately, if you're acting in the customer's best interest, I promise you, they're going to ask more questions. They may even, again, if you say it, they doubt it. If they say it, it's true. Well, Collin, if I've got this motor, what happens if that doesn't fix the problem? Well, you know what? All I know right now is that this particular part, this particular repair service needs to be done in order for me to provide you an honest and accurate assessment and give you the peace of mind that you're looking for. Now, in the event that doesn't happen, we're not in the habit of double dipping you. Okay. There are things that can be done. And depending on which branch you're in, everybody kind of does it a little differently, but there are options. But ultimately, it's connecting with the customer to make sure that, hey, if you pay for this part and it doesn't work, all right, well, then I guess we're going to load the parts cannon up and we'll see what else we can fire out. It's not that. It's empathizing with the customer and saying, look, I understand that this is a lot of money on a system that you may be considering replacing in the near future. Okay. What I want you to know is that you can have full confidence moving forward with this repair, because if it doesn't resolve your issue to your satisfaction, you're not going to be married to it. Okay. And again, check with your managers, check with your supervisors on how the process you guys want to handle that. We do here in Dallas, we do repair credits up to a certain amount, like an initial repair. If it doesn't fix the customer's problem, or their system still is going to need probably, some more work, they're like, well, I don't want to spend that money and then have to buy a whole new system. We're going to credit that towards the cost of the replacement. Okay. Yeah. But in order to get you complete peace of mind, I told you I was going to get you up and running. I need to do this repair to do that. Secondly, let me get you the rest of your options, which are possible replacement with a more efficient and reliable system. And that's where you now have the customers like, okay, they did what they say they were going to do, and they're giving me options. So that way I'm not just cornholed into one thing. Because guys, that is the biggest key to my success, is I remove my emotionality out of the equation. I still have empathy and I'm still sympathetic, because when it gets hot, it's miserable, and people do not make good decisions when they're hot and under duress. So the more that you can side with them, the more that you can empathize with them and say, look, I am here because I want you to have a level of service that you've never experienced. I'm going to get you cooling. I'm going to get you comfortable, but I don't want you to make a bad decision in a rush simply because you're desperate. That's what every other company does. We don't do that here at Fix It. We don't do here that On Time. We don't do it at Extreme Air. That's not us. We're going to make sure that you're happy with your decision, and we're going to be with you all along the way, because we want to gain a client. We're not just looking for a customer.
So one thing I want everybody to really pull out of this, and I know we got to wrap, is when the customer declines or initially says no to the solution that you provide, the initial repair, Collin, reminded the client, hey, Mrs. Smith, remember you were telling me how important peace of mind was to you, and you wanted that guarantee it wasn't going to break down after I leave. Did something change, or is it the money, or what is it? Being able to confront that and have that conversation. Collin mentioned that a lot of guys are afraid to do that. And the reason why they're afraid is because they haven't established a level of comfort with their client. They haven't built the relationship leading up to that point. And so if you're uncomfortable saying it, the client's going to be uncomfortable hearing it, right? So the goal is that by the time that I present a solution, I've got to be comfortable not only delivering the quote unquote bad news, but I also got to be comfortable with the price. That leading up to that point, I've provided so much value and education that price is not going to sound as bad as it is, or the problem isn't going to sound as bad as it is. And even if it still does, I've built such a relationship to a client where I can respectfully confront, because that's what I do to people that I love, people in my family, people I'm close to. If they're going to make a bad decision, I'm going to inquire why. And that actually shows the client that you actually do care. Because if you're just like, okay, let me pack up my stuff and leave, that actually demonstrates to the client that you don't care. And maybe everything you've set up to that point or how you've acted to that point was disingenuous. But if you actually really do care with people you love, you inquire why when they're about to make a bad decision. So I just wanted to point that out and make sure everybody understood where Collin was going with that.
Guys, I just wanted to say one last thing in closing. If you're watching this and you're like, man, I've seen his numbers, I've seen what he do, everybody, you know, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. Don't buy into that, okay? What you want to focus on being the absolute best version that you can be in your area, in your market, okay? The team, the organization, they want to see you win. I've never been a part of an organization so much that they want to see you win. Anybody, and I promise you this, absolutely anybody can start right now and be where I am in 6 months. If you're willing to put the work in, be disciplined to stick to the 12 keys and the process, seek help, seek leadership. But I'm telling you guys, it's awesome up here at the top and there's plenty of room for everybody. Let's take this organization, let's take the level of service that we do as technicians, and let's blow every other market, every other company out of the water to where customers no longer question whether or not, you know, they need to get a second opinion. They know that what they're getting from Fix It Group, On Time Experts, wherever we're at, they're getting the absolute best thing. And it starts with you, the technician who's in their home, who they're experiencing firsthand right in front of them. And I'm telling you guys, I'm not magic. I'm not special. I simply made a choice, made a conscious decision to sell out to the process, no matter what, no matter how uncomfortable it made me. And the benefits, the you know, everything that was a byproduct of that, it came, you know, along with it. So anybody can do or be where I am. All you have to do is decide that this is where you want to be. That's the destination. And every single move, every single decision, every single, you know, training that you do is in pursuit of that decision. Guys, I wish you good luck. I hope you guys have an amazing summer. And always let us know if we can help in any way.
That's what Legendary is all about, man. Be legendary or be forgotten, right?
Yep, absolutely.
I think for a kickoff episode, this is pretty darn amazing. Brian, thank you for this idea. We are going to keep delivering this. We're going to talk to folks from Dallas, Denver, Charleston, Phoenix. So if you're watching this right now and you know somebody that's going above and beyond, email me, hdavis@fixmyhome.com. Nominate somebody. We're calling you a perfect first guest. Work hard, have empathy, have passion, and I think it's a recipe for success no matter what you do.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yep.
It's a hot Texas summer, so you guys better get to work.
All right.
Yeah.
See you guys later.
Go be legendary. Let's go. Have a great one.